So I'm going to leave a link in the description to this video right here. It's a video interview done on tsn.ca by TSN's Brian Mudryk with Montreal Canadiens GM Kent Hughes. The video itself is only 3 minutes long, it's about 2 minutes 50 seconds, and the description pretty much sums up all you need to know. Canadiens GM Kent Hughes spoke to TSN's Brian Mudryk about his priorities for the upcoming NHL Draft, where they have a pair of first-round picks, how much fun it's been to watch Juraj Slafkovsky's growth, and more. Very basic interview, not really too much groundbreaking, earth-shattering stuff included in this conversation, but it is nice to hear the words come from KH's mouth himself. But the reason I'm making this video is because after this entire conversation was posted onto the Our Canadiens subreddit, you had yourselves a pretty interesting follow-up conversation that took place in the comment section, pretty much debating what the Canadiens should do with the 5th overall pick. Now, if you go over to Tankathon, we had already talked about this and more in a video a few days ago, but the Canadiens have an 8.5% chance at drafting 1st overall. They have a much higher percent chance of staying at number 5. Now, there is a possibility that they go up to number 2. There's a possibility that they go down to number 6 or even number 7. But let's just stay with this for now and say Montreal is going to draft 5th overall. With this in mind, what I wanted to focus on was the idea of the Canadiens drafting for need versus drafting for BPA. And this is kind of the looming idea I wanted to introduce in this video. Normally, best player available is the gospel. Everybody says, okay, if you have your rankings 1 to 10, 1 to 15, 1 to whichever it is that you're going to be picking in the draft, then the guy who is the highest on your list that is still available when you pick, you take him. Screw the position, screw the timeline, screw whether or not he's Russian or if he's going to college or whatever. Just take the guy whom you think is going to be the best. And that, very loosely, has been one of the more, let's just say, followed rules amongst NHL fan discussion boards. But when it comes to the Canadiens at number 5, sure, we had already talked about Caden Lindstrom and his entire situation. Apparently there's mutual interest between the Canadiens and him. We had also talked about in separate videos Ivan Demidov, who is a really good player in the Russian leagues. Think maybe a Matvei Mishkov 2.0 situation with the Russian factor and everything. And then, of course, Macklin Celebrini is up here as well as the projected 1st overall pick. But something that you'll notice with the Montreal Canadiens in this range of the draft is that a lot of these players are defensemen. Artyom Levshunov is over here, so is Sam Dickinson, Anton Silayev, Zeev Buium, Zayne Parekh. These guys are all defensemen and they're all eligible for the draft. They're all projected to being top guys, and when it comes to their position, I mean, look at this. Artyom Levshunov is a right-handed defenseman. Okay, he's pretty okay. Sam Dickinson, left-handed guy. Anton Silayev, left-handed guy. Zeev Buium, left-handed guy. Zayne Parekh is a right-handed guy too, so there you go, there's a little bit of diversity here. But essentially, the conversation that was occurring on the Canadian subreddit debated whether or not guys like Buium and Dickinson are on the Canadiens' do not draft list, unless they are sure they can work out a trade right after. Now, why exactly would there need to be a trade? It's because if you're drafting a Zeev Buium, for example, with the 5th overall pick, his consolidated ranking is 9, let's say you reach on him a little bit, you bring him up to 5. You're drafting this guy because you think he is the best player available. Like, there are other defensemen that are available here that could be seen as better, but if you're taking a little bit of a reach on a left-handed guy, you believe in him. Like, that's the reason you're drafting him. You believe in his talent, you believe in his potential, but long-term, where does that fit? You believe in Zeev Buium's potential, but you probably also believe in Lane Hutson. You probably also believe in Caden Gooley, and you probably believe in a bunch of the other defensemen the Montreal Canadiens have already. Jaden Struble's a left-handed guy. You have Jordan Harris, who's a lefty. Mike Matheson's a lefty, too. There are a bunch of left-handed guys, and that's not even talking about Arber Xhekaj. So, because there are already so many players that you could project into the long-term future if you're the Montreal Canadiens, would it not make sense to say, okay, well, sorry, Zeev Buium, we like you a lot, but we don't really have a projectable spot for you. And so when it comes to dissecting hairs, splitting the atom down the middle, trying to decide whom you're going to take in the 5th overall spot, well, sure, best player available is generally the rule, but when you think about the positional opportunities that present themselves to the guys that are available in the draft, you have to start thinking, okay, if we draft an Anton Silayev, we might not actually be able to put him in the best position to succeed if we believe in all the other guys that we have and we project them to being NHL talents like Silayev, Hutson, Struble, Caden Gooley, Xhekaj, like that's 5 guys right there. You're not going to have all 5 of them playing in your D-core because you still have righties that need spots too. So would you rather, and this is one of the big dilemmas here, would you rather go with the best player available if you assume it's a left-handed defenseman and at the same time make a trade with somebody else for some other player to open up that roster spot? Or do you just say, screw it, let's just go with the guy whom we feel is going to be good, but who actually fills a need that we have? Berkly Catton is a 5'11 forward, but Kent Hughes is on the record saying that he wants size. So is Caden Lindstrom automatically the go-to guy here? I mean, he's projected to go number 5th, that's his consolidated ranking, and he's a big dude, 6'4", left-handed forward. But if this is not the player whom you think is the BPA at that spot, do you sacrifice with that potential by going with somebody else because they fulfill a positional need? Now, I know there are a lot of Canadiens fans that will freak out about going positional because, look, if you go over to prior drafts, I mean, the 2018 one was the biggest example of that. The Montreal Canadiens needed a center, and thus they drafted the center. But the difference here is that Jesperi Kotkaniemi was like the top center in the 2018 draft, and nobody really thought that he was going to be as high of a pick at 3rd overall than he ended up becoming. I mean, the highest ranking here was number 5 by TSN and Bob McKenzie, but McKean set him at 13, future considerations at 13 as well. I remember heading into the draft, we were kind of saying, okay, there could be a center that's on the rise. It's either going to be Kotkaniemi or Hayden, but nobody thought that it would be 3rd overall. If anything, the Canadiens reached for a positional need draft pick at 3rd, rather than just going with a BPA like a Brady Tkachuk or a Zadina or a Quinn Hughes. I mean, any one of these 3 guys would have changed the franchise's entire spectrum of events and everything else to begin with, but I mean, I guess the Canadiens made the finals in 2021 with KK, so there was some benefit to that. But with this in mind, you have to start talking about where it's appropriate to sacrifice the best player available to get a guy who is more positionally sound. The most obvious example here is the 2022 NHL entry draft, and this was actually talked about in the Canadian sub as well, but it's a very, very good one. Simon Nemec was taken 2nd overall, despite the fact that everybody said the second dude would be Logan Cooley. And it was even more of a divergence because everybody thought the 1st overall pick would have been Shane Wright and not Juraj Slafkovsky. But the fact is, the Devils already had Hischier and Hughes, so they didn't really have a need to go after a Cooley or a Wright. If they drafted one of these guys, they wouldn't really have the flexibility to use them to their top potentials. So they went with a guy in Nemec who was a reach because nobody thought he'd go 2nd overall, but in their minds, they kind of had Nemec, Cooley, Wright in the same tier anyway, so if you had to differentiate the small bits and pieces, you go with the guy that helps you out more. If they're all in the same tier, then it's easier to pick one over the other and say, okay, well, let's just go with this guy because he fits our team a lot more, and we still think he's going to be pretty good. Not saying that the Montreal Canadiens did not do that with Jesperi Kotkaniemi, but the grading of where Kotkaniemi was going to go in the draft was so egregiously low compared to where he actually went that it was really concerning with this pick. I mean, KK was ranked by some people to go 13th overall, which was way outside the realm of where Montreal was drafting. So with this in mind, do you apply these same rules to 2024, where there are so many left-handed defensemen that are available and probably going to be good, but the Canadiens may need to choose and steer away from that? Of course, if they just go with Caden Lindstrom, then everything's fine, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section. What are your opinions about the Montreal Canadiens' dilemma heading into the 2024 NHL entry draft, and do you think Kent Hughes is going to draft a D-man? Is it going to be BPA? They're going to go straight with it and just take whomever it is on the board, or do they strategically plan around this, try to get a forward who is big, like a Caden Lindstrom, or somebody else who fills that same profile? I mean, unfortunately, the next big forward that's available here, you could say Liam Greentree, he's 6'2", Carter Yakimchuk is 6'3", and then there are a few other guys towards the middle part, but the Canadiens are projected to drafting 5th overall, so let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What is the outcome of this draft pick, and where do the Habs go from here? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.